2 years ago, I was sitting in the woods and telling you all about the song that I'd written to try and raise awareness of this awful abuse called parental alienation. It's been an interesting 2 years since then, and I just thought I'd like to record this little video just to let you know what I've learnt since that point. First of all, if you are an alienated parent, I want to tell you about two fantastic charities. One is Match Mothers, who supported me brilliantly, and they'll be linked down below in the description. And also Families Need Fathers, which is a much larger organisation, initially set up for dads, but I think they do support both mums and dads. And both of these charities give fantastic support. But the thing is, these parents shouldn't need support. What they need is their children. And more importantly, their children need them. So, what's happened during the first 2 years? The first thing I did was to try and contact a rather small domestic abuse charity that supports women, because I noticed on their website they didn't have anything about parental alienation. I chatted to their online support person, and she was really supportive and, yes, really encouraging. And I wrote lots about parental alienation for this charity. And they were very grateful, and they put me on a little support group, which is interesting. And then time went on, and all the stuff that I'd written didn't seem to materialise on their website, or if I did find it, it was lost down lots of different pages and it wouldn't be found quickly. And I was just a bit disappointed, because I thought, hang on, this abuse needs to have a dirty, great big spotlight shone on it. Why is it being tucked away at the back of their website? So then I was contacted by a lovely lady who was trying to get a video set up called What Do You Miss? I will put the link for that down below. And it was aimed at all the people during the pandemic who were missing their grandchildren. In particular, there were lots of grandparents saying, I'm missing my grandchildren, this isn't fair, I want to have a hug with them. And I realised that there must be parents out there who, like me, were missing their children and not being able to give them hugs. But this wasn't because of a pandemic. This was because there were forces at work preventing them from having contact with their children. This force obviously being parental alienation. So I got involved with this little group and we made this video. And as we were making it, we chatted about it. And suddenly I began to realise that why our message wasn't getting out there. There were other forces that were stopping our message. And also coming up very soon in 2021 was the Domestic Abuse Bill, which is now the Domestic Abuse Act. And we knew that we needed to get this awful abuse included in the bill, either overtly with a definition of what parental alienation is, or at least mentioning what alienating behaviours are. So this is how ROC was formed. ROC is basically 6 mums, and we have all been alienated from our children. I am lucky. I'm reunited with my daughter. We have a good relationship, but the other 5 are not. One of them is so alienated she has absolutely no contact with her child whatsoever, and she doesn't have a clue where she lives. Worse still, it's her own mother who has alienated her from her daughter. It beggars belief. And my arms go out to her, and I just want to give her a big hug the whole time, because it's not fair, it's not right, it's not just. Anyway, we decided that we needed to get parental alienation mentioned in the Domestic Abuse Bill. If not overtly, with a definition of what it is, we needed to have it mentioned as alienating behaviours as a form of coercive control. Because this abuse is insidious and it is awful. Baroness Mayer gave it her best shot. She tried to get an amendment to put this in. We gave it our best shot by emailing every single peer in the House of Lords. We also put out a survey which we had nearly 1,400 responses to, and the answers were quite clear. Parental alienation is real. It happens. It is not a myth. And what was most devastating for me as I was getting all the information back were these comments coming back from parents who were absolutely devastated by this abuse. So many of them mentioned the word suicidal because that was their only way out. I had to keep on saying to them, please don't be like that. Your children will need you. They'll need to know the truth one day. Stay strong. They need you. As I was doing this, and as the 6 of us were working to try and raise awareness about this parental alienation, we became more aware that there are very real forces out there that are trying to silence us. Now, I'm not into conspiracy theories. I'm into the truth. I like the truth to get out there. But what I'm going to start telling you is going to sound like conspiracy theories, but it's not. This is what's actually happened to us. Initially, I thought it was just the shame. Now, for mums, if you've been alienated from your children, you feel this crippling shame that you can't reach out to your children, because surely if your child doesn't live with you, you must have been a bad mum. But then there's also court proceedings. If you're going through it, you cannot speak out because you don't want to jeopardise what's going on in court. Or finally, you don't want to speak out and put your head above the parapet purely because you want to protect that very precious and very fragile relationship that you could have with your children, or that you're trying to get to work with your children. But that just didn't explain it. It wasn't enough. Because if that was the case, surely there would be people prepared to speak out about it. At this point, I started contacting my local MP, and initially he was really supportive, and yes, I'm going to see what I can do. So he took it to the ministers who were trying to get it included into the Domestic Abuse Act, and back came a whole spiel about it was covered by coercive control. The harm report would cover it. No, it doesn't. So I then started looking very closely at the harm report and realised that all the contributors to the harm report were feminists. There was barely anyone who wanted to talk about how men were affected by domestic abuse, which is like, what? Hello? You know, if 2 out of 3 victims of domestic abuse are women, 1 out of 3 of them are men. A third of domestic abuse victims are men. And yet if you look at the funding, it's not a third that goes to the men's charities. It's a way less. Way, way less. So could there be something here? And again, it all seemed ludicrous to me. And then you start looking at the public positions that these women are in government. The victims' commissioners are quite openly feminists, and we tried desperately to get our message out to the media. Nothing. There was absolutely nothing, no uptake on this awful, awful experience that we're going through. Thousands of people feeling suicidal by an abuse, and no one is prepared to take it up. Crazy. I should add, when we first started our survey, within half an hour, we had BBC journalists calling us up, wanting to get our experience of what was going on. Why were we doing this survey? And in the last year, nothing. Nothing. Nobody has contacted us. Then we started looking more closely at the acts, at the wording in the different bills, and it's quite obvious that the false allegations that can be made and targeted at the targeted parent, nothing's done to follow up. Abusers can make false allegations and nothing is done. However, as we're seeing with the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case at the moment, careers are devastated by it. Now, they're in the public profile. We're seeing it's being played out for the world to see. But for most of us, that doesn't happen. You just don't get that contract renewed. You just get sidelined at work. You just, whatever. And you find that you're not getting the work. It's not coming in like it used to. Or you just can't cope. For many of us, we worked with children, and you find that just facing children day in, day out, you can't do it when you're grieving for your own children. The worst bit is, as these lies are spoken about us, the children begin to believe them. So even when all these allegations are proved that they're totally and utterly false, our children are suspicious of us. They don't want anything to do with us. And that is utterly, utterly heartbreaking. There is no consequence for this. The other thing I've noticed is that civil courts can find someone guilty of a criminal offence. It doesn't have to go to a criminal court. It can go to a civil court, and that's fine. That is damning enough to affect someone's livelihood. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. And yet the proof of evidence is nowhere near the same of a criminal court. As I've said, men's groups just don't get the same support. So which leaves me constantly going back to why can't we get people talking about parental alienation? It is not a myth. I'll put a link down to the video that I made talking about the two sides of it. It's not a myth. It is real. What I find heartbreaking is seeing our children and how they are just a shell of what they should be. They're not the person we dreamed that they would be. And I'm not talking about trying to mould them to be a little mini-me. I'm not talking about that. I just want to see children confident and happy and prepared for the world, not this shell that is untrusting of anyone reaching out to support them. So why? Why is it? I think it could be money. I think it could just be funding. There is money behind everything. For the domestic abuse charities, their funding, they don't want to share it with the men. They want to hold it onto it all for themselves. And then you look at other cases where you've got all these different people trying to make money out of victims, giving them therapy, giving them support. Now, I'm not criticising people who are doing it from a point of wanting to support and build up and rebuild victims, but I am critical of those who are just out there to make money, who are offering a service when they don't really understand what they're talking about because they think they can help and make money for themselves. I'm not into that, and I'm not making these videos to make money. I'm making these videos purely to raise awareness of this awful, heinous evil called parental alienation. So, tomorrow is Parental Alienation Day, and I just want you to raise awareness of this. I know that if you're watching this, you will personally know a number of people who are going through this, but I can guarantee there will be people in your life who are going through this that you don't know about. And as you start talking about it, they will start opening up to you when they feel safe to open up about what's happening in their life. We need to get the word out there. We need to start talking about this awful abuse that separates safe, loving parents from their children and stops children from growing up into healthy, prosperous children that can add something meaningful to society rather than draining society. Thank you.